We are back.
Yes, sir.
I hope so. Are we back?
Yeah. We got 12 live on YouTube, but 12 live on Rumble right now. People are rolling in, but Rumble is matching. It's catching up to YouTube fast, and we get at least 100% of engagement on there.
Let me tell you something. The China-Russia alliance is not as important as that, because when Rumble, that's almost true. When Rumble does overtake YouTube or matches it in scale and importance, that's a complete game changer for really everything, but certainly politics, because YouTube is currently the main conduit of information for people, and even people on our side of the aisle. And of course, they do rampant censorship, as we know well. So there's a lot you cannot hear or see on YouTube that is essential information. On Rumble, so far, at least as far as I understand it, there's basically no censorship whatsoever. So it's a free place, and it's a place where all the information you need and want can be had. So I've been waiting for this moment. I mean, we have had no real challenger to Twitter or Facebook yet, or Instagram, and YouTube, but YouTube is maybe the most important of all those in terms of the dissemination of information, I think, these days. And so, I mean, I watch more YouTube videos than I read articles now. That in the last year or two, that changed. So it's absolutely essential, and you just simply can't talk about major issues too on YouTube, as we know, the one beginning with C, for one thing, and even stuff about what we're going to talk about tonight. Like they have censored stuff about the Ukraine war, for God's sake. Like, so this is a big deal. If Rumble, and it looks like it, Rumble is growing, not just with our live stream tonight, but it seems to be growing very fast in ways I haven't seen other platforms do.
Yeah, Matt McDermott just said this in the chat. Even if Rumble's not taken over YouTube, as long as it has a decent sized market share, and as long as there's other competitors out there like Odyssey, and there's a guarantee that there's a place to go for good journalism, YouTube is going to have to wean off the censorship, and they have. I think YouTube has gotten a lot more safe in the last 2 or 3 months because they have competition now that they have to think about.
Competition, it's the best thing. Right, exactly. I mean, right, Matt's correct there. I mean, all we need is for them to have competition. Rumble doesn't have to actually be dominant. They just have to be able to put the screws on YouTube. So, which I guess is happening. I mean, although you and I have not been treated well by YouTube in recent months, is that since our last strike they've gotten better?
Oh shoot, I think our strike might have expired. I shouldn't tell the audience that, because some troll is going to start flagging our stuff now, but I think we're in the clear now.
Yeah. The last one. Yeah, we had many. Some were taken off, some were pending for a long time. But yeah, our last strike, the only strike we currently had, was, I think, taken off this week.
Yeah. So you just have to be a good boy for 90 days.
That was for I can say it, right? I mean,
yeah, sure.
That was for our ad for Cody Wilson for 3D guns. And even though it didn't show a gun, it didn't show how to make a gun, it didn't mention guns, it didn't mention firearms. It's kind of remarkable. Cody did a great job of coding everything with the ad. But yeah, nonetheless, I do know that when liberal types, sort of normie liberal types, see my stuff, see my channel, or have historically, that's the thing they go after. They get very upset immediately about the 3D printed guns, because we've had courses on how to make 3D printed guns, and I've had several guests. I've had Cody on twice, and I've had a bunch of guys who are like major figures in the 3D gun world on the show. And that for whatever reason, that's actually what pisses people off more than like the interview with Alexander Dugin, or the whole host of alt-right people who have been on the show too. But anyway, so I'm not totally surprised by that, is my point. I think if anybody with that kind of politics just stumbles upon our channel, was most likely what was going to set them off. And it was a standalone ad too. It was a separate video for 3D printed guns. So anyway, it's good. I hope. Yeah, no, anyway, God bless Rumble and keep it going. I do want to do some more research on them. I don't know. I mean, I know Glenn Greenwald is a huge, part of, I mean, he's a huge promoter of Rumble and talks about how it's the free speech alternative to YouTube. I just haven't seen the proof of that. I don't know who these people are. Like, I do know the heads of other platforms like Substack and Odyssey and and Minds. And those three, like, I know those guys personally, or I've talked to them personally. Like, they're all very clearly like total free speech absolutists, no doubt about it. But I don't know who. Do you know anything about the Rumble people?
No, I don't. I know the Rothman people. Yeah, Rumble's a little mysterious.
Yeah, we need to look into them.
Yeah,
but anyway, so far so great. Let's keep rolling with Rumble. Love it.
Man, I spent some time on Twitter this week, and I was But the censorship there, I do think it's a great thing that Elon Musk bought Twitter. In that it's like, man, I hate to be the guy using this analogy, but it's like taking down the Death Star, in that like the origins of everything bad in the world was how liberals dominated Twitter, and to upset that balance of power, even if it shifts the balance of power in a new direction, just to upset that balance of power is the most important thing ever. Like, it just takes the core out of the thing that's feeding the cancer in our society. And to see how these socialist trolls behave when they when they start to ratio you, and they start to like think that they're trying to cancel you, like they'll bookmark your tweets, or you'll reply to something, and the reply will be provocative, but it's a reply to a provocation, and then they'll delete the provocation so it looks like you said something crazy out of context.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it's a sign of impotence, I think, that they're going to these tactics. And if you're unflappable on there, it's fun, and they don't know what to do anymore.
Are you calling communists who have
impotence
beards who live in Brooklyn and are graduate students impotent? Really?
Yes. Yeah.
What? Based on what evidence, Weimer?
Based off of their violent fantasies where they play out historical situations where they're the good guys.
Hence the name Tankies.
Yeah.
That's right. The tank in their pants, wasn't, they weren't born with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the tank replaces what they don't have. It's like, it's for most normal men, it's the sports car when they're in middle age. It's like worship of Joseph Stalin, quite a masculine guy, by the way, compensates for their lack of equipment.
Mm-hmm. I've noticed that the far left, though, there's like you saw this with the Dark Brandon memes, where like the liberal left was embracing the idea that Joe Biden is an imperial dictator, like a king warlord type guy, because they like the feeling of power that gives them. I've noticed that the liberals, there's a hyper online class of liberals that behave like socialists.
Meaning they call for like mass extermination of political dissidents.
Yeah, they're like neocons, essentially. Like they agree with
they get violent
on everything.
They get violent.
They're absolutely violent, and they love Hillary Clinton. They love Biden. They love Obama because they're symbols of potency. Like, you side with the people who have power, and they feel good for that. Yeah.
It's the violence in the fantasies that really sets the left apart, And I didn't notice that when I was in the left, and I was in the left for decades, as most people know, and my parents have always been on the left, and I talk to them every once in a while, and I always hear when I talk to them, how my mother wants to put a bullet in the head of some Republican. And those are the words, and she uses those words. But yeah, it's everywhere though. On Twitter, you see the real difference between the kind of shitbag leftists and the shitbag rightists on Twitter, and there's plenty of both, is that, the right wingers have, their share of violent fantasies, no doubt, especially when it comes to the grooming thing and all that stuff. But outside of that, I mean, I actually don't see too many threats of violence from right wingers on Twitter. But from the left, it's like a common thing. They love talking about putting people in prison. They love talking about wanting to kill people. It's just, there's a ruthlessness about them, but that's because they are a religious people. And they believe that there are some on earth who are irredeemable sinners. And I mean, really, this is the
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, the violence, man, it's really a trip. And then especially when you talk to like hardcore leftists, like actual socialists and Marxists, they make no bones about it. I mean, that's how I learned about guns and how gun control was a bad thing from a Marxist, from a really radical Marxist who like was basically my godfather when I was growing up in Berkeley. Yeah, he had a gun, and it was the first time I ever saw a gun. And I said, "What the hell is that?" I was terrified because I was this little like soy Berkeley lefty boy. And he said, "No, the people need guns for the revolution."
Yep.
Of course.
There's
And I was
I
like,
saw a bumper sticker. I saw a bumper sticker recently that said, "How do you think we're supposed to seize the means of production?" And it had like communist imagery and gun imagery. Yeah.
totally. And there's a handful of lefties now who do that. There's actually a guy I follow on, I'm sorry if you're not a quote guy, but anyway, there's a person on Twitter who goes by the handle Queer Armorer. And the account is pretty amazing, actually. It's just he or she, whatever those, is it plural? I don't know. The person who has that account posts images of their favorite guns and then talks about their favorite guns and gives lessons, I believe, for queer people to use guns. I mean, it's kind of amazing. It's very much the Black Panthers idea, and it's also very much Maj Touré's idea with Black Guns Matter. It's very much the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, which predates all those people back in Dallas. Really amazing group, by the way. They were training Black people in guns and firearm safety and use like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I did a piece on them for Reason Magazine, a video thing with Nick Gillespie. Yeah, or no, with Judd Weissmuller. But yeah, it's a good thing. But anyway, my point was the left finally caught on to that. Like very recently, there's like a few feminist gun groups. There's more than one queer gun group I know about. There's several like Black radical gun clubs and gun groups around the country. Huey P. Newton's one of them. There's a few others I've known about. I can't remember. But yeah, it's but here's the difference. the Black and queer and feminist and libertarian gun clubs don't talk about what they want to do with the guns other than defend themselves. Whereas the Marxists, when they talk about guns, it's all about the end result, the revolution. Like my Marxist godfather said, but the people need guns for the revolution. So they're already thinking about what they're going to do with the guns. It's all about the ends for them, right? It's not about protecting yourself in the meantime. It's a blood-drenched fantasy socialism. Turns out.
Yeah, those gun clubs resemble militias more so than the right wingers do, because they have like the guerrilla like uniforms, and they're actually marching in formation a lot of times, and you'll see them at protests, and they'll be behaving like armed security a lot of times, whereas the militias, if they're really crazy, they're doing drills in the forest sometimes. Ooh.
Right. One group I left out was Antifa. Recently have been showing up at drag shows to defend drag shows with rifles, with assault rifles. So, which has been funny to watch. But I mean, I actually, in some ways, that's the first time I've ever respected Antifa. That's the only thing I've ever seen them do that I have any respect for.
Dude, in the BLM riots, there's a video from New York City of some like frat bros like cheering on the protesters, like, "Yeah, good for you, man. Stick to the man." And they get a brick through their window, and they're like, "What the, dude? We're on your side, bro. We're on your side." I was very sympathetic toward Antifa then.
Yeah, no, for real. I mean, they get it, and also I love anytime you combine violence and drag queens. I just think that's cool. Like the Stonewall riots of 1969. That's exactly what that was. It was drag queens beating the shit out of cops. They didn't have guns though. They just had rocks and bricks and stiletto heels that they threw at the cops.
Just like the Boston Tea Party. Or no, sorry, just like the Boston Massacre. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Right. Exactly. I mean, I was going to, well, as you were saying, I mean, what these hard left groups are doing around guns lately is absolutely consistent with conservative American tradition, and sort of libertarian, pro-gun, Second Amendment, NRA politics. Like that's what it's about. It's about the people having the ability to resist the encroachments of a tyrannical government. That's, now for the communists, they're not going to stop there. They're going to stop the encroachments of the government and then overthrow the government with the guns. But, the first thing has to happen is you have to be able to protect yourselves from a government that's trying to squash your rebellion or just squash you because they don't like you. So, but, that's Thomas Jefferson. That's as you said, that's the Boston Massacre. That's everything. I mean, it's the American Revolution. Precisely. I mean, that is the idea of that's the original idea of the American Revolution, right? I mean, that's what the colonists were doing in the colonies against the king, against the crown. They were defending themselves against what they believed to be a tyrannical government, and they used guns. And thank God there was no gun control in 1776, at least for them, right? Ain't no American Revolution if there had been real gun control. If, Britain at that time had the gun policy it does today. Imagine that, right? Where it's essentially illegal to own a gun anywhere in the UK. There's no American Revolution, guys. So there you go. I mean, not only is there no American Revolution, the taxation without representation, the passing of all these taxes sort of willy-nilly, that would have gone over no problem. And the crown would have taxed the shit out of our political ancestors, the original Americans, and all the rest of it. Tyranny would have proceeded apace, and it would have increased, no doubt. And this is something to think about with Europe. When you compare Europe and America, the political cultures of both, it's on the one hand, yes, they have all this wonderful free stuff that the state gives them, but the fundamental reason for that is that the people of Scandinavia and Northern Europe in particular are far more compliant with the government and the state than Americans are. Far more compliant.
You're talking about the culture of the people there and their attitudes towards the government. Yeah.
Toward authority generally, but especially state authority. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're also very, people talk about how the dumb shit right wingers are always like, yeah, they're homogeneous. They're all the same race. That's why they can have nice things in Sweden. No, they're not. It's not about their stupid race, you knucklehead racists. It's about their homogeneous ideology. Like there's just an incredible, that's starting to break apart a little bit now, by the way. Now in Scandinavia, there's some significant right wing political parties, but not until 10 years. I mean, until 10 years ago, there was nothing like that. And virtually every Swede and every Norwegian thought more or less like a San Francisco liberal, something like that, like super environmentalist, completely down with social democracy or some soft form of socialism, believed that fundamentally government is good, right? That's the thing. In Scandinavia, especially, I mean, the vast majority of people fundamentally believe the government is good. It's amazing. It's an amazing concept if you think about it. I mean, it's amazing to think that there's anybody on earth who thinks that fundamentally the government is a good thing. But so that's the difference. We are a more rebellious people. We are less compliant with authority in general.
Well,
yeah.
That again, that's ingrained in our culture very, very deeply. The American culture, like selfishness, like stupid selfishness.
Yeah, to makes us great. That's right.
Yeah,
Ayn Rand had a point there.
Yeah. I've been reading Atlas Shrugged finally, so
I've never read a word of her, but
it's Women's History Month, so you have to. And
didn't she like renounce being a woman or something like that?
No, I wouldn't say that, but she, I think there's a famous anecdote where I think Mises thought she was a man and she took that as a compliment.
Right. So wasn't she, again, I've never read a word. I know a lot of Randians, unfortunately. I mean, so she simultaneously presents in a very masculine kind of butch way. On the other hand, the other thing she's known for is being a complete sex freak.
Yeah. She has a fetishization of masculine, like, selfishness.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she wants a man who takes what he wants and doesn't apologize for it. And so, yeah.
Well, hang on now. Americans are not selfish, though. That's not the thing. Because
Well,
about charity, giving to charity, the US is like head and shoulders above every other country. Like we give way more to money to charity than any other people on earth. And even like poor people and lower middle class people in the United States give a ton of their money to charity. And also, people I think care about their families just as much as they do in Europe. And their churches are extremely powerful and they really care about the people in their church generally. Right?
yeah, yes.
But
Uh,
there is a difference though.
there's a difference. I mean,
It's
I'm really not familiar with Europe. I've never been to Europe. I don't know the European culture too well. I've always dismissed it as gay, and
it is.
yeah.
No, it is.
So
I mean, I'm sure many people, many in our audience know that British men are all gay. I mean, just
boarding
listen to
school,
them.
yeah.
I mean, just listen to them talk. Yeah. And Europeans generally, and in fact, the more northern you go, the gayer they get. I mean, yeah. I mean, like when you get up into the Arctic Circle, they're just completely 100% gay. There's no differentiation. No, it's true. No, this is funny. You're hitting on major historical tropes. So the critique of the founding fathers of Europe was that it was, and this was their word, too feminine. They talked on and on and on about the feminine and effeminate kings and the effeminate people of Europe and how they were weak and soft and emotional and given to luxury over hard work and all these things. It was, and to this day,
Well, yeah.
European men,
Mhm.
they generally dress and behave in ways that most Americans consider to be a little on the femme side.
Yeah, I mean, think about the British aristocracy at the time, living indoors all the time, you know,
Yeah.
as opposed to the colonizers or yeah, fighting
Right.
against the elements. Yeah.
We were out like pulling trees out of the ground and like building log cabins in the middle of the winter in Massachusetts and then going killing Indians and
Mhm.
riding horses, across the Great Plains and mining silver. This now I'm
Yeah.
sounding like a fucking
They would read as much as
Donald Trump. He's like a Trump ad right now.
yeah, but they would read
No,
as
but
much as the English, but they, also had to deal with real life, you know?
yeah. And the number of immigrants, right? I mean, try being an immigrant to a country, where you don't speak the language, where you don't know the culture, and see how many masculine traits you demonstrate real fast, right? I mean, because you have to survive. You have to kick ass to survive as an immigrant in any country, right? And we're a country of immigrants, very famously, and I think that's a part of it. I mean, that's a huge reason why Americans work so hard, is that most of our ancestors came here to work, to get money through work, which is a very masculine characteristic, right?
Mhm.
So we are a more butch nation, most
Yeah,
certainly,
yeah. I think, I mean,
which is funny.
that's a central Randian critique is, she came from the Soviet Union where everybody was communist and, they are evil and brutal like anywhere else in the world, but they couch it in this feminine, we care for each other and the motherland and all that stuff. Whereas, America does not apologize. We're every man for himself. We're the best. At least that's how it used to be.
We were a butch nation.
We
We
were, yeah.
were, until now. I mean, I think we still fundamentally are, but it's changing. It is most
Mhm.
certainly changing. I mean, I think, since they, started siphoning testosterone from baby boys, I know that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, so that no boys have any testosterone. But something is, I mean, it's really amazing. I do see what I think is, what would I say, higher degrees of femininity among American young boys and men. I don't know I mean, it's hard for you to know because you weren't around for the older generations, but I really do think, I mean, we know about the testosterone levels declining, but I think you can see it. I mean, there's also sort of the trans thing is part of a broader androgynous cultural movement similar to what we had in the 80s, but it seems deeper now. It seems like there's more people who are really like in the center between the two genders who are really ambiguous in that way. But
Yeah.
but Until now, yeah, we were a John Wayne nation. Now we're a I don't know, Juliet Wayne nation or something. I mean, it's a trans world now. Seems to be.
Yeah. Oh man, this is the central thing. There's a couple ways I can go. So, did you see Simon Atiba this week with Karine Jean-Pierre? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I know all about
There's
it.
a
Yeah,
couple
yeah, yeah.
instances, but
Oh,
earlier this
Corinne.
week,
Oh,
there's a couple of
Corinne.
things that happened.
Yeah.
Uganda passed a law, like an anti-LGBT law. Did you see that?
Yes.
Basically imprisoning gay people. Yeah.
Straight up. Yeah, they've had a few of those laws in the past. This is
Mhm.
not new for Uganda, but yeah, it's straight up. I think it's called the anti-homosexual law. It's
Mhm.
not.
Yeah.
Anti-homosexuality law. Right. I mean,
Mhm.
they're pretty, straight up about it.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church, I believe, in Uganda is like, I think it's the most right-wing diocese or something in the world.
Mhm.
I mean, they want to like kill women who have abortions or something. I don't know. They're like completely out of control. But yeah, it's an ultra right-wing country, especially around LGBT issues. What are you going to
Mhm.
say about it?
Oh, well, I'm setting up a couple things, but yeah, when you interviewed Germinal G. Vaughn, you asked
Yeah.
him, "Hey, the social conservatism of Africa, is that the Catholic Church? Is that the colonizers?"
Mm,
And he said, "No, it's our culture. It's who we are fundamentally." And
right.
it's a big part of the
God.
diaspora too. You see, this machismo in a lot of Latin America from the black men there. You see it in our country with certain attitudes towards gay people, but it's part of their culture.
Yeah. Go take your feminism and your trans ideology to some immigrant group. Go talk to some immigrants, about that stuff. Good
Mhm.
luck. The closer you get to the real working class in this country, the farther you get from woke.
Mhm. But
This,
yeah,
I mean, this is
Simon Atiba. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, but yeah, Simon Atiba is the I guess African White
Is he
House
Kenya? Is
correspondent.
he from Kenya? I think is it
Yes,
Kenya?
I
Kenya,
believe
right.
so. Yeah, and yeah, he'd been trying to get at Karine Jean-Pierre all week to
Well,
nail
no.
her on.
This let
Yeah.
me tell the whole story and then
Okay.
you can go. Like
Okay.
it's been like I think a year now. He's been
Yeah.
every single press briefing in the White House. He's been shouting from the back trying to get her to call on him, and I guess she never has or almost never has. It actually started with Jen Psaki, so this goes way back. He's been doing this like every week, and all of the corporate press who are in the room hate his guts. All the reporters in there, and they've been yelling at him. Now we're probably going to see that in the clip, in fact. And it's just this constant sort of comedy show in the press briefings. And then, Corinne, I love her very, very deeply, and she knows that, but she has no clue what she's doing. She has to read every word of every answer she gives to every question. It's really hard to watch for me, partly because I love her so much, but partly because she's the press secretary for the President of the United States of America. She is the one who is communicating the policies of the president. Oh, heavens. She doesn't know anything about anything. What did she call? She referred to the People's Republic of Russia the other day.
Mhm. Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
what are we doing here? This is the executive office. You guys handle foreign affairs. Like what? You don't know the names of the biggest countries, the most important. Okay.
Dude, this is
Anyway,
this is this is the systemic rot that we have in our society. I've always noticed that liberals are not real people. They are NPCs, just like the meme, and
mhm,
they have been trained ever since public school. Well, ever since school and their elite private schools as well, but from a very young age to say the correct answer, not to have any thoughts of their own, but to say the correct answer that will get approved on by the test that will help them get the right credentials to move on. They've
right.
never ever considered thinking critically when it comes to their work or their politics.
Yeah, well, I mean, school, of course, as we know, and this goes for private schools too, for the most part. I mean, it's their aim is to squelch creativity because I mean their stated purpose has been to create citizens, citizens who are, pay allegiance to the flag quite literally in their classrooms, but to serve the country, to serve the interests of the country. It's not about asking questions about the country. It's not about asking questions about what we should do for the country. It's not about asking questions about whether we should do anything for our country. No, so of course, yeah, it's amazing that any child comes out of 13 years of that with any creativity. I mean, each one of those people who does that at the age of 18 and still is showing some spark of creativity is like a miracle, a blessing. I can't explain it. I mean, these massive institutions, namely the state governments and the federal government, and other forces as well, have done everything they can for 13 solid years all the time to stop people from being creative, to punish them for being creative. You'll get a less of a score. You'll get a lower score on your test if you're creative, guaranteed. If you spend your time being creative, you're going to get lower grades because you won't be doing their homework, which has nothing to do with creativity. No, they're printing presses. On one level, that's what you could say schools are. They're printing presses. They're just printing the sanctioned ideas onto the brains of every human who goes through there. And it is very much like a factory too, as many people have said. But yeah,
I think you're overestimating the power of these schools. What I'm talking about is the personality type of the person who rises through the ranks of these schools and conforms their entire life to get through these schools. Because real quick, there's a lot of smart people, I think myself included, who saw the school system and are like, oh, wait a minute, all you have to do is conform to get a good grade. Conforming's not hard. I'll conform in 5 minutes, give you what you want, and then I'll live the rest of my life the way I want to live it,
Right. No, you're right. I do overestimate it generally. But I mean, certainly at the very least, it takes away the time that kids could use for creativity. It just, there are few opportunities to be creative when you are sitting in a classroom all day long, 5 days a week. But no, I think you're right in general. In fact, and we sort of have evidence for this, which is the DARE program, right? The drugs. I mean, I think I was the first generation to experience that because I was in high school during early Reagan. Yeah, I'm sure I was. Yeah. So in the early 80s, we were the first generation. So, well, trust me. I mean, we did more drugs as a result of that.
No,
and I know, but we know this.
Party, you show up to the party wearing your DARE T-shirt if you still have it as a joke. It's
totally, totally became a joke, which is wow, that's a failed policy. Sorry, Nancy Reagan. But yeah, I mean, I think we have statistics on this too. I mean, drug use among post DARE Americans is up. Like, there's more drugs being taken. So thank God. So we should have more attempts at repressive policies, which is kind of true because when you do that, people get cynical about the government, right? And just like in the Soviet Union, no one gave a shit about the government. No one had feelings for the government of the Soviet Union because they knew it was all bullshit because they could see how arbitrary and capricious and authoritarian they were, and brutal. And so in some ways, and this is a lesson from Foucault, by the way, when governments repress forcibly and physically and do direct coercion to maintain power and control people, it tends to backfire. People tend to either rebel outright or they just simply disrespect the authority and they don't have any they don't merge their identity in any way with the powers that be. When you talk to people as a government official and say, hey man, tell me about your life. I want to learn about you. And I want to represent you. I'm here for you. So tell me about yourself. Then people start to believe in the government and they end up signing up for things the government wants them to do. But Simon Atiba, this is a totally different topic. Okay. We're going to look at him.
No, I just want to bring up that anecdote a little bit. Yeah. So since we're talking about the credentialist thing, we got to talk about this clip. This new course that was just announced at your alma mater. It's got people buzzing.
Can't wait.
Oh my God.
What is it?
It's Hilary Clinton. She's running.
What?
What? Hillary's running again?
I know. I heard that's so crazy.
This is wild. She's running again.
Here I am.
Hilary, you're running again.
Well, I sure am, Karen. I just got here early for the new class we're teaching together on foreign policy decision making.
Classes don't start until September.
Yeah, but I wanted to be prepared, Karen. When it comes to crisis situations, you've always got to be prepared.
Prepared? I think you're more prepared than anyone to teach this course. Now, what are we going to call it?
Inside the Situation Room.
Yes. And I'll cover the theory of political decision-making and strategy.
And I'll cover what it was actually like in the room during the bin Laden raid, the Iran sanctions, the Gaza ceasefire, you name it.
Okay, but are you ready for whatever questions the students throw at you?
Bring it on. Now, if you'll excuse me, Karen, I've got to run.
You heard the secretary. If you get inside the Situation Room, come prepared.
Dude,
so many things to say.
Man,
What?
I would.
First.
Well, I would take that course just to act. I mean, I might die if I actually get a chance to ask Hillary Clinton a question. You're gonna see me with a self-inflicted shotgun wound if I ever take that course.
Wow! Imagine being able to ask her a question, though.
Yeah.
Especially about foreign policy. My goodness, right? I mean, that's her. Notice she didn't mention Libya. That was her baby, and she didn't mention it in that little list of things. We're not going to cover that, Hillary. That was probably your most momentous decision as Secretary of State.
Yeah, tell me about the energy in the room when you decided to finally kill Osama bin Laden, which you had been saving for years as the ultimate PR tool. Like, how is that such a hard decision to make, to tell other men to raid somebody's house and kill him?
Oh God, you know about that famous picture of the moment when they're all in the situation?
One.
Wow, boy, I would have a lot of questions for her. I wonder if we could get. So I still do have contacts at Columbia. I wonder if I could get someone in that room to just spy on it for us. God, if we could get some video, some bootleg video from in there. Boy, that would be amazing. So here's the thing. This is why bad things happen in the world. This is why the United States kills so many people. This is why, we have a gigantic military. This is why all the bad things is because a major portion of the American population, and most importantly, virtually the entire elite, or I should say the vast majority of the elite, think Hillary Clinton is part of their family. And that's so, like, she's cute to them in that video, right? That's how they're treating her the way you would treat your mom who you really like. It's a little bit like slightly teasy, but it's basically like, see, we love you, Mom. We're playing games with you. We're having fun. I mean, they're talking about the issues in that course are about the killing of hundreds of thousands of people. And if they cover other secretaries of state, it'll be millions. Dead people, including lots and lots of children dead, but this is cute. It's fun. It's a game. It's lighthearted. And like, we're all hanging out because if your actual mom, Michael, were a Secretary of State and you had the politics you do, you would still, I think, love her, right? And you would still probably do like sweet things with her. That's the problem here, is that because you have to forgive your mother for doing anything. And so that's the thing. We have the elites, most of the elites in this country have a familial, psychological, like maybe it's parafamilial relationship with the Democratic Party and its leaders, especially with Obama and Hillary Clinton. Before that, it was Bill. I mean, I was with a woman for a very long time who had an outright crush on Bill Clinton, like really wanted to marry him, basically, like just thought he was an awesome man.
Thaddeus, real quick, are you telling me that women are attracted to power? Are you telling me that there's some connection there?
Well, then why don't they like Donald Trump?
Well, I mean,
they hate him.
How much power did he really have as president?
No, it wasn't just the power, man. Like no one wants to fuck Joe Biden.
There's a lot of women in flyover country who are definitely Trump is some sort of surrogate for them in their minds.
Oh yeah. Oh well, the best stuff was Obama. I mean, the white liberal woman dreams about him. You know about that? There was a whole there were articles written about this. There were blog. I mean, there were
the
studies
Boondocks
done.
episode. Yeah.
Oh, there was a lot on this. I mean, it was it was a real phenomenon. White women having dreams about Barack Obama. Oh boy.
Mm-hmm. No, I remember. Yeah, all throughout high school and college, I'd ask, "Hey, so why do you like Obama?" "Oh, he's a DILF." I heard that so many times. No, and now as a misogynist who finds women just adorable and doesn't take their opinion seriously, I don't get bothered by it anymore. But that was the serious conversations I had in college about politics.
Yeah, Reagan was the only, I believe, conservative president to have sort of a paternal relationship with his constituents.
And then Bush Sr. by extension.
No one gave a fuck about Bush Sr.
Okay, I mean, he was boring, but a lot of people respect him, especially with the World War II background. And,
like the super elites, like people in the Situation Room, that kind of level. But no one outside the White House gave a fuck about just Bush Sr. But Reagan had that. I mean, people really loved him like a dad. Now, see, the Democrats. This is why part of why the Democrats have won, or maybe it's the main reason they've won. They've managed to put up many presidents who were loved, and I mean loved, by masses of people, masses of voters. I mean, I can think of certainly Franklin Roosevelt, certainly John F. Kennedy, for sure, Obama.
So I got a joke about Biden. Biden is what God sent to punish Catholics for JFK.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh, that poor guy. He just was it some clip today, some speech I guess he just gave where it was just a word salad. It was a word salad. Boy, it was quite it was something about foreign policy too, and he merged 4 words into one. So it was like transgender policy problem. I mean, you couldn't even. It was that level. I mean, it was truly like he had just woken up from the anesthesia after surgery. Like he was completely in the middle of his speech. He was that out of it. So we're going to talk about. Maybe we should take a vote. Let the audience decide. We're going to talk about either Eurasian policy, what's going on with Russia and China, or
I've got the perfect way to. Okay, go ahead. Or what? Or
well, I don't know. Okay, or we can talk about black people seasoning food.
Oh no, we're going to talk about the seasoning. We're going to get to this. Yeah.
Great.
I'm a master.
Priorities.
Yeah.
But I have let me tell you something. I have a lot to say about this.
Yep, I know you have a lot to say about the seasoning crisis. Yeah.
Oh, with black people and seasoning? No, I need a soapbox right now.
Okay.
I'm about to blow.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. What?
Okay. Well, the meeting between Xi and Putin. So Xi went to Moscow.
Wait. Oh, we are doing China-Russia first?
We are doing China-Russia first. No, I don't want to.
I was getting all excited.
We got some good foreign policy cooking, I think.
I was getting excited about getting ready to talk about chicken, but okay.
Yeah.
This is the most important news story of the decade.
Yeah.
It is. It is. Yeah, I'm sorry if it's boring. I know it's not like the sexiest thing. I know it's not like black people making chicken, but it is really, I mean, it is. The whole world has just been reordered. The whole world has just been reordered. The entire Eurasian landmass is now controlled essentially by a single entity. I mean, more or less. We'll see how close they merge, but right now they are an alliance. They're on the verge of being a military alliance. They're an economic alliance. They are talking mad love about each other all the time. Russia and China have gotten together. This is an incredible thing. This is what U.S. foreign policymakers have been most afraid of in the world since the beginning of the Republic, was Russia and China coming together and controlling Eurasia, because they've always known that if you control Eurasia, you control the entire world, or you can. It's just it's a preeminent position to be in, to control Eurasia for lots of obvious reasons. And for a lot of weird reasons, it never happened. Like Russia and China were usually rivalrous or at odds. I mean, they had moments of peace, but never very much cooperation, and sometimes outright hostility. Two different forms of communism after World War II, very different. Yeah.
A big thing to study is those years where both Mao and Stalin were in power, and the rivalry they kind of had, and how Mao didn't really kick his plans into gear until after Stalin died. The
Bolshevik Revolution, was based on the idea of a proletarian revolution. Mao was all about the peasant revolution, and that had major, differences in meaning, like what that meant for each one was very big. But so this was such a huge thing. It's a sort of topic of study. It's a field of study. It's called the Sino-Soviet split, and you can look that up. That is why the United States really has remained the dominant superpower for 70 plus years, whatever it is now, because those two never got together. So
it's so funny to hear people. It's so funny to hear the chorus of communist, quote unquote, communist China, when really the defining characteristic of China over the last 40 years has been reforms in the capitalist direction,
Yeah. And like producing shitloads of stuff in capitalist factories, like the most capitalist thing ever, right? Is what they're doing and have been doing, and seem to be almost exclusively focused on. So, yes, Xi and Putin have been signing papers for 3 days, and all of their ministers apparently Xi brought like this army of government ministers with him to Moscow, because they're doing a whole big complicated deal, and they are going to I think in foreign policy they will act as a single entity in their relationships with other countries, most notably, of course, the United States and NATO. They will act as a single entity. Think about that, everybody. Combine those two militaries and combine those two economies. And by the way, their economies match like the jigsaw puzzle piece for various reasons. Russia's the big oil and gas producer. China desperately needs oil and gas, and China has lots of money, more so than Russia has, et cetera, to do that. But there's incredible number of co-constitutive relationships there. So, people are kind of reeling from this right now. I'm talking about foreign policy people like who do this for a living every day, talking about. They're kind of like, this is such a big deal that we're kind of all trying to figure out what it means in the long term. And so I haven't seen any kind of detailed analysis about the prospects of this. Maybe someone has written that, but it's
Dad, you know what the analysis is.
What? Well,
okay,
depends on who. Depends on who, from whom.
Okay.
Which, and talking about the establishment.
Yeah, the establishment. Yeah.
Well, they're mad at China ever since China got together with Russia. They were trying to make love with China for 40 years, since the late 70s. The elite, and especially the democratic liberal elite, they were loving China, and they wanted this, eternal partnership with China, and they were bringing as much Chinese money into this country, and Chinese students and Chinese, institutions, and letting China, the CCP, take positions in all the major institutions, especially the universities. It's still, that's the story that I want. Someone needs to write that story, is how the Democratic establishment, Democratic Party, just turned on China as soon as they supported Russia in the war with Ukraine in February of last year. Actually, it was a week before the war started. There was a meeting between Xi and Putin, in which they signaled that they're cool. And people were like, what the fuck? And that was it. And right then, as soon as that happened, the entire Council on Foreign Relations and the Brookings and all those think tanks, those liberal Democratic Party think tanks on foreign policy, they were like, nope, fuck you, China. It's on now with both of you. We're going to take you both out now. And ever since then, for the last year, the rhetoric from Biden and everybody has been belligerent toward China. It was not belligerent until this happened, which again, this proves the thesis that Eurasia is the paramount concern of US foreign policymakers. They've always known they need to control that thing, or at least be able to manage it, which they had when they had China. They had such an awesome deal with China going. They thought that they were cool in perpetuity. All they needed to do was remove Putin, and then they could take over Russia too. That's all fucked now because they completely shit the bed with the Ukraine war, and the sanctions backfired and the war has backfired. And all that's happened as a result of the war is that all these countries around the world want to join with Putin and Russia now, or China, and ditch the United States, all these long-term allies, which we're going to talk about too. I mean, huge things. And then last week, was it that she brokered a peace deal of all things between Iran and Saudi Arabia? Like,
yeah, Sunni Shia peace deal. Yeah.
Yeah. What? I mean, that relationship, that conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia defined the contours of the Middle East. That was basically the two alliances there fighting each other in the Middle East. One was led by Iran and one was led by Saudi Arabia. Shia and Sunni, for God's sake, too. I mean, it's sort of based on that split, right? One being Shia, the other Sunni predominantly. They hated each other, I mean, as nation states. And I mean, the whole Yemen war was all about that. That was a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia inside Yemen. And all of a sudden, there's the peace. She walks in and he's like, it's all cool now. And they're shaking hands. And so now Saudi Arabia and Iran and Pakistan's about to join this too. South Africa, Brazil. It's so many countries every week. I can't even keep track of it now, who are joining this alliance, either the BRICS alliance or the SCO alliance. Doesn't matter, or just have an informal or a formal bilateral agreement with either Russia or China. There is an alliance developing in the world led by Russia and China, and we'll see who ends up being paramount in that. I wonder if there's already a deal in place where she is allowed to be basically the senior leader in that, and Putin's the junior one. I don't know. I'm very curious to find that out. But so far as we know, in terms of foreign policy, they will act as one entity now. Holy shit. And all these other countries are joining that. They are joining that, and many long-term U.S. allies are just like, bye, like Saudi Arabia, arguably the most important ally of the United States, outside of Europe, probably is. One of them anyway. So, and boom, they're like, go fuck yourself, Uncle Sam. We're hanging out with the Russians and the Chinese. Amazing. Momentous. I lived my whole life I lived with the Cold War, in which, the Cold War shaped the contours of the world, where you could travel, where a hotspot was determined by what was going on in the Cold War, by those two alliances between the Warsaw Pact and NATO, right? That fight defined sort of almost everything in the world we lived in. And since then, it's been the case as well, basically. I mean, since then, it's been NATO versus poor little Russia by itself without the Warsaw Pact, but it's been essentially the same kind of system. That system's gone. Holy Christ. I mean, the system I was born into, that I've lived with my whole life, you too, I mean, all of us, like, wow. Now it's an entirely new world, one in which Eurasia, I'll call it that now. I mean, the Eurasian entity led by Russia and China, they have allies on every continent now. Oh, Mexico has been making major noises about joining BRICS. I mean, and the president of Mexico now seems to be sort of a leftist badass. And so he's kind of like, he's not into the Yankee imperialist shit. Like, he's going his own way, and he's on their side on the Ukraine war, I believe, and other stuff in general. Whoa. Theoretically, we could have Russian military bases in Mexico. And then we'll see how Americans react to that, right? Mm-hmm. Which is what, it's the reverse is what's happening, right? American bases are right basically in Russia's Mexico, right next door. Ukraine is Russia's Mexico. And of course they, did what they have done, which is to take action to defend their sovereignty. But anyway, so this is a new world, man, and people are not paying attention to it. I know it's kind of dry, I guess, and maybe it's not as interesting as other things, but this is the most important thing that's happened in many, many years. This is more important than COVID. This is more important than anything in this decade so far.
Okay.
Yes.
You didn't get there quite, but this is how the United States establishment is treating it. The Democrats are a little bit more careful in their language. They definitely want American hegemony, and they definitely are talking about economic war, at least with China, but they are starting to raise the flag on China. But this is Kevin McCarthy. This is what he had to say.
But your first premise of your question, think about it. President Xi has only left China twice since the pandemic, and both times revolved around Putin, Russia. The other time was North Korea and Iran. That's a very, very concerning future. For those who study history, it seems a little like the 1930s and the axis of power of individuals creating. These are not democracies, but what are they fighting? They talk about a new world order. You look at Putin, who no longer respects the Russian constitution and the term limits of president. You watch President Xi change his constitution so he can serve another term. You've watched his advocates of taking Taiwan. You watch North Korea now. All that transpires because there's a vacuum of leadership around the world. And why did this begin? Well, the pivot, a couple different places. When Joe Biden met with Putin and he lifted all the sanctions of Nord Stream 2, it gave the wrong message to Putin to invade Ukraine. And so that's a real concern. That's one of the bases of where the whole premise of a select committee on China came was on the 75th anniversary of Normandy. I was walking the gravestones. Nancy Pelosi was there as well. And I've looked at all those young men from the Star of David to the cross, all about the same age, all dying around the same time, and wondering at that moment, what could the lawmakers have done? The policymakers, not the week before, but the decade before that day would never have to come. What should they have done when they first saw Hitler, Mussolini, and Japan getting together? What policies should they have prepared for ahead of time? What dependencies did they become weak upon? What aggression did they look the other way on building up a military of Hitler, even though it went against the Treaty of Versailles? Or the movement in of Czechoslovakia and Austria? Or the movement into Crimea? Or the desire to take Taiwan? So, walking through the pandemic, thinking about where was America waking up to medical supplies.
He's talking about a new axis of evil. This is what Sean Hannity was saying last week. I've got another clip of Nikki Haley saying the exact same thing. It's one of those crazy things where, like, you see on local news, like every local news station in every city repeats the same thing about a news event, word for word. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It almost feels like there was a memo given out to call Russia and China the axis of evil, the new axis of evil.
Oh yeah,
but
I think there is actually. I mean, I think the CIA and probably the NSC do that. I'm sure they give memos on this, on what the current line is, because these people, like Kevin McCarthy, sort of showing off that he like took a history class once. But, most Congress people don't know this stuff, and foreign policy is so infinitely complex. Anyway, I'm sure they are. I'm sure it's a central thing because it is so uniform. You're right. I mean, we've said it's the Uni-party. The Republicans and Democrats have famously completely agreed on one thing forever, which is this foreign policy until Trump. And now there is a large wing of the Republican Party that's not having this. They're not having the war against Russia, but they do want a war, probably some kind of confrontation, certainly with China. So we have the establishment, Republicans and Democrats, who agree totally always on foreign policy. Their line currently is, we want war with Russia and China. The line of the loyal opposition, I guess, the MAGA Republicans, is we just want war with China. I mean, it's not a good look anywhere you go there. MAGA has become increasingly bellicose toward China. And I mean, I haven't heard like Steve Bannon or Jack Posobiec or any of those cats like outright call for war, but they do everything right up to that. And I mean, I think they've called for economic war for sure. I mean, I don't even think I've heard is Frank Gaffney, the lunatic, who's kind of the foreign policy guy for MAGA. I don't think he's even called for war with China, which is I could be wrong about that. Someone please fact check that. Actually, I watched him a lot over the last couple of years. I never saw him call for war for China. He is the most hawkish human being who's ever lived. I mean, the guy just wants war like nobody's business. But more than anything against China, it's his whole life right now is trying to get the United States to go to war with China, I think. But he's never said it. He's never said it. Yeah. Anyway, so, but they're still very close to that. Anyway, it's all very, there's no, within both parties, there's nobody with the right line, I don't think, because everybody's either anti-Russia or anti-China or both. I think.
Well, again, if you listen carefully to what McCarthy was saying there, it's like they're setting up World War III to happen 5 years from now, essentially. So Putin is Hitler, and this is his first expansion project, is getting into Ukraine, and then the next thing you know, he's going to take over all of Eastern Europe, and then he's going to take over the world. And then there's this other non-democratic state that has a dictator that just got elected unanimously. And you know what? They like to do business with North Korea and Saudi Arabia and all these other non-democratic people. So you've got an axis of evil forming. And, you know, Neville Chamberlain was wrong. Everybody knows that the problem in World War II was being too nice to Eastern Europe. So, yeah, it's a and this is why I brought it up, too, is that, like, you think about Hilary Clinton at Columbia, right? Like, you think of the motherly figure being escalated there, even if there isn't a memo that goes out that tells everybody what to say, they don't need a memo, right? They've been trained to think of the world in this way. That World War II is the genesis of the liberal order that they love so much. And everything in the world looks like a nail to them. World War II is their World War is their hammer, and everything looks like a nail all the time.
You know, people on our side always talk about the neocons this and the neocons that. The neocons are the bad guys. The neocons are responsible for all this shit. Excuse me, everyone. Like, how exactly is the neocon philosophy of foreign affairs different than the foreign affairs philosophy of every other Democrat and Republican? I mean, they all agree on this stuff. I mean, the neocons maybe have been a touch more aggressive, but they're all just outright global imperialists who, you know, want to stop at nothing to like do regime change in Russia and all the rest of it. There's incredible uniformity. I mean, the only difference now is MAGA, but MAGA is terrible on China. And that might be the most terrible thing to be terrible on. War with China is the worst possible. Oh God, I don't even.
It does feel like the establishment Republicans have co-opted like the China hawkishness from MAGA. And then like it seems like it's a meme that started with MAGA, and then the Republicans realized, oh, geopolitics have changed. We can use this to our advantage. And then the Democrats kind of followed suit as well.
Yeah. I had to like think about war with China. What would it actually look like there? The United States has, I believe it's 11 now, nuclear submarines. It's either 11 or 12. And each one of them carries Trident II nuclear tipped missiles. And I forget how many, I think it's something like 6 to 8 missiles on each submarine. But within each missile splits into multiple sub missiles. So it can hit like one single Trident II missile can hit multiple cities, right? And I think they have like 6 to 8. Anyway, one nuclear submarine, the Trident II missiles of a nuclear submarine in the U.S. Navy could kill every single person in China. Like, that's what we're talking about. And I don't think China has a response to that. I don't think China has any defensive mechanism to deal with that. One of our subs can do that, and there's more than 10 of them, and most of them are in the Pacific, right next door to Japan, right next door to China. And so we will do with nuclear weapons what we did to Japan with firebombs. People forget about that.
Yeah,
it was all firebombs. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I mean, would that, I'm just contemplating that. Would we go?
Yeah.
Would that happen?
Well, another reason why I'm bringing up these clips, and there's like, look at the body language on Kevin McCarthy there, and look at the body language in general of these people talking about a potential war and the potential plans that we need to make to get more aggressive with Russia and China. Like, they're usually kind of happy, like they see it as an opportunity. They're kind of like excited by it. They feel like they're finally getting to go to work. And then same deal with the initial announce of the lockdown. That video resurfaced from 3 years ago where Trump and Fauci and a bunch of bureaucrats excitedly talking about the lockdown as it was happening. And, the comments are like, are they low key having sex with each other? Like, why are they so giddy all of a sudden? And
yeah, MAGA. Yeah. I hope you're listening. Everyone go yell at your MAGA friend about that. Trump signed the lockdown order, people. And he did so, as Michael's saying, enthusiastically. He was joking around when he signed that. But Trump did that. Anyway.
Again,
he also pushed the he's also pushed the vaccines the whole time.
Yep.
What's up with that? And MAGA is full of anti-vaxxers and anti-lockdowners. Like, the most hardcore anti-lockdowners are MAGA people. How are they? I don't even know how they're dealing with that. They're just doing a cognitive dissonance thing or something.
Yeah,
but sorry. Go ahead.
The perspective of World War III gives the elites the chance to be the good guy again. It gets, them the chance to be historically important again.
FDR. Everybody wants to be FDR. Everybody wants to be FDR, or maybe Lincoln, but they all want to be one of those guys. Mostly FDR. Yeah, it's great. I mean, war is, and we know that approval ratings for presidents shoot up during a war. I mean, George W. Bush, everybody hated George W. Bush's guts. Even a lot of Republicans hated him. On September 10th, 2001, September 12th, in my super liberal communist Brooklyn neighborhood, there were American flags and people saluting George Bush the next day. People and they love Giuliani too. They hate, oh God, did we hate Giuliani in New York City? But on September 12th, when he was police commissioner, it was, man, these old crusty liberals and lefties were loving Giuliani and Bush during a war. And this always happens. So yes, the elites, as Randolph Bourne said, war is the health of the state. War benefits the powers that be in the government. This is one of the reasons the state may not seek out wars, although it often does, but it will often welcome them. The state will often welcome wars for the reasons that you and I have just been saying. And this right here is the most catastrophic logic in politics. I mean, the logic of that, right? The governments and states and nation states in particular almost ineluctably move toward war for that reason. There's also the need for, the desire among statesmen for more territory, which requires or more resources, which requires conquest. I mean, these are. See, I'm getting like scared just saying this, right? Because we're on the verge right now. I mean, I know we've been on the verge before, but it's been a year now of being on the verge. I don't remember being on the verge like this long.
Yeah, it's been a year, and all anybody in charge has ever done is just pour gasoline on the fire. And they've just like slowly Chinese water torture, dripping gasoline on the problem the whole time. And it's been it's been demoralizing to watch. Yeah.
I'm teaching the course on the Cold War, and
Mhm.
the amount of money the United States gave to Korea, South Korea, when it was fighting with South Korea in the Korean War for 3 years, was the equivalent of $6 billion in current dollars.
Mhm.
We've given, what is it now? $120 billion to Ukraine. Again, the money the United States gave to South Korea during the Korean War, when the United States deployed hundreds of thousands of its own troops to that war, the money, was 6 billion to 120 billion. I mean, yeah, fire. I mean, gasoline on a fire. That's right. They cannot, because they're completely committed to removing Vladimir Putin from power. That's it. That's all it is for them. That's all it is.
Yeah.
The whole
the
foreign policy
ICC court.
establishment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The ICC
that's
court
proof
just
of it.
issued an arrest warrant. Like that's nothing but escalation.
Well, it's
but
a
yeah.
declaration that it's a war of annihilation, that
Mhm.
they will, just like with World War II, Churchill and Roosevelt announced, this is going to be a war of total annihilation. We're going to destroy you. That's the word they used,
Mhm.
and we're not going to stop until you're destroyed and eliminated from the face of the earth. That's what's going on here. It's an
Yeah.
eliminationist policy, strategy, objective. They will not stop this war, Michael, until Vladimir Putin is removed. Everyone needs to think about that. I wish they would think about it every day, because that is what could get a lot of people killed.
Mhm. And again, I think these liberal circles, like Kevin McCarthy is from a liberal circle, like a culturally liberal place. That's where all these people, that's where this, so as we've documented on this show, you can't express masculinity in these circles. You just can't. So
that's what foreign policy is for, you're saying?
That's what foreign policy is for. Yeah, you get to be the big man, being the big superhero, saving the world all the time because you're the good guy, and
sending other people to war. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
They never go to war. Not anymore. They used to, back like during World War II, World War I, a lot of elites, and I give them credit. Like, I got no beef with that. Like, a lot of the leaders of the pro-war movement, Teddy Roosevelt kind of started that with the Spanish-American War. A lot of serious elites, they enlisted to fight in those god-awful, and they fought in combat, like, a whole bunch of them, but not anymore. Not since Vietnam. They're like, no, we're good.
Yeah, the sad thing is Bo Biden was kind of the last one to do it, and the sad thing is Joe uses Bo's death as a shield from any criticism on his foreign policy. Like, somebody will say, "Hey, Joe, you mobilized Democratic support for the Iraq War. Shouldn't you be disqualified from commenting on foreign policy?" And he says, "My son died in that war. Don't you tell me that I don't care about things." And then the conversation ends. Yeah,
right.
That's so sad.
There was that one excellent confrontation that veteran had with Biden in person. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, like it's like a state fair.
It's happened several times. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's the one. I think it was a state fair. This guy just walks right up to him and just lays into him about Iraq.
Yeah.
Ooh, it was good.
Yeah.
I wonder who that guy is. He was very, very good and articulate.
Okay,
powerful.
real quick. Running out of time. I want to get to everything. Another fantasy from these impotent liberals is, we're going to throw Trump in jail. The evil bad man who paid off a porn star and has done so many other bad things. We're going to get him like Al Capone and we're going to throw him in jail.
They love that.
Yeah.
That's all they want. That's all they want. If they don't want to put a bullet in his head, well, they do want to do that too. They just can't say that in public. But my mother, I know she speaks for many of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, right. Oh, you want to, yeah. So this thing, God damn. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm sorry. Liberals are just 5 years old now. I don't know what else. I mean, that's what this is. This DA Alvin Bragg in Manhattan bringing charges for what? This hush order, something like hush money to Stormy Daniels. Like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, really?
Well, and the charge is that it was paid for by his legal counsel, that this hush money was paid for by Trump's legal counsel, and maybe that money was used for a crime, and therefore it was listed incorrectly. So yeah,
Like, I think like two or three prosecutors declined to pursue this case. Like,
yeah.
no.
And the grand jury still hasn't made a decision, and it seems like a cat and mouse game just for headlines.
I mean, the district attorney for Manhattan, who went to Trinity Prep School, which is one of the top 10 prep schools in the United States, and then went on to Harvard, and then came back to Manhattan and became a Democratic politician in New York City. You don't think he would do this for like political purposes, do you? Like to stop Trump from running for president or something like that?
Yeah. Well, this is the line that it's a Stalinist attack to keep Trump in like legal limbo and to keep him from pursuing his political career and his political aspirations. And yeah, it's a show trial, and it's definitely politically targeted, is what the conservatives are saying.
Trump he's running, and they're terrified because Biden may not survive until the election. I mean, then they have nobody. They got nobody in the stable. Like, they gave it their best shot with all those midwits and fools they ran last time, led by Kamala. I mean, they know that Kamala can't win anything. They know that Pete can't win anything. They know Beto's basically a joke. I mean, they don't have anybody who's got any juice at all, and this is all they got. All they've got is lawfare against Trump. They're just going to try to either, I mean, they would love to put him in jail, but they just want to embarrass him, make him look bad, or somehow legally stop him from running or campaigning. I don't know, but that's it. That's all they've got.
Yeah. And a lot of people are saying this is going to backfire on them, in that, like, if Trump does a badass perp walk and gets persecuted in some way and does maybe, I don't know, a week of jail time or something, and gets out on bail or something, then
Like
it's the greatest campaign ad ever, right?
Oh God. Like those AI, I'm sure you saw the AI photos of him getting arrested.
One of them is on our thumbnail. Yeah.
Delicious. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, super delicious. I mean, that would be one of the top moments in American history right there. That would be one of the top moments in world history. People, wow. The optics on that, boy. I don't see it happening. I think Trump has too much. Has too much pride and ego to let that happen to him. Getting manhandled by other men, that's not good.
Yeah. There's a way to do it, though. There's a way to do it, though, to where it would look good for him. And like Bolsonaro, for example, when he won, I think it was because he got stabbed. I think it was the optics of getting stabbed that got so much popular support for him, saying, "Oh my God, things really are that bad that this guy's getting persecuted. So he must be the only thing that could save us from the rot in our country."
They know, the liberals know, or I should stop saying that. The Democrats know that that they've got to go easy on this. I've seen many like Democrat types say to their people, "Don't go crazy on this. Let's just get it done. Let's not celebrate," they've said. Let's not rub it in their faces. They're nervous. They're really nervous about MAGA, and they know this could backfire. And of course it would. I mean, imagine that. No, they're going to do it underground. I guarantee you they will do it in the basement of Trump Tower in Midtown Manhattan. Yeah, where there's they will not have any press. Yeah. No press, nothing, I'm sure. The perp walk would be so dope, though. God, I'd pay for that.
And then the 2024 presidential run, Republican primary field is very crucial. It's dependent on how this thing plays out, because it was an opportunity for Ron DeSantis to, I guess, posture on this. Mike Cernovich said that Ron DeSantis needs to call this out as lawfare and needs to say that this is wrong and that he'll support Trump. And DeSantis was kind of mealy-mouthed on it. And it seems that, I don't know if these are Lincoln Project people or just Republicans with too much time on their hands, but there seems to be a lot of throwing of stones between the DeSantis and Trump camps after this event.
Yeah, I don't quite understand this. I've seen this happening, but I've started to see MAGA getting mad at DeSantis or predicting or saying that he is destroying his own chances by doing this, that it's self-destructive for him to go after Trump. And I guess I don't quite understand that one, except I suppose they're just sort of positing that the MAGA base is invulnerable. Like it will never stray from its leader. You know, is that what people are saying?
Oh, no, it's just like this is a moment that defines DeSantis's character. He needs to see how awful the lawfare really is, that this is like the fundamental problem with our country. And if he doesn't call it out, it shows that he doesn't have his finger on the pulse and he doesn't have good political instincts.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, he's betraying Trump. I mean,
yes.
And the whole question is, how many MAGA can he peel off? I mean, I think that's the whole question. He knows he's got the establishment Republicans, although even they're not going to be all happy with DeSantis. But that's not enough to win. He needs a significant chunk of MAGA. And I don't know why any MAGA person would go with DeSantis over their boy. I just don't see that. I mean, what would be the reason? Well, except, COVID. Like if DeSantis, he's not going hard on that. That's the whole thing he should be doing, right? Because every single MAGA person was anti-lockdown, anti-mask, anti-vax, right? DeSantis should be every single day saying, hey, he's the one. I don't know why he's not doing this. He's the one who signed the lockdown order. He's the one who is responsible for the vax. He made the vax. His people made the vax, literally. Yeah. And why? You should join with me. You can trust me in a time of crisis like that. I will make the right decisions because I have real principles, unlike your guy, unlike Trump.
It's too early. I think it's too early right now. Eventually the gloves will come off, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boy, that's got to be it though. That'll be interesting too, because then it's going to force a fight over the COVID policies.
Yeah.
I guess between Trump and DeSantis. Although I'm so fucking tired of COVID, I don't even ever want to mention the name again. But
I do think it's important to bring up in that, like, we just need to, like, I think abusers. Oh man, I sound like I don't know how to put this, but
what?
Bad people get away with what they do. I mean, it's such a bummer to bring up COVID because I personally feel like I'm holding a grudge and like I'm an angry person and it just brings up bad emotions of anger and whatnot. But like, this is how bad people get away with stuff, is that the good people move on with their lives and they don't hold a grudge, So I think it's important to say that this thing was absolutely awful and everybody who played a role in it needs to be fired and needs to at least work at McDonald's or something to stay out of public life.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Do I want revenge, retribution? I am your retribution. God, that was the scariest line ever. That Trump moment. I am your retribution. Yikes, dude. That's, by the way, that's not fascism. That's authoritarianism. That's a different thing. Fascism is much more complex than that. That's just straight up authoritarianism, like rule by force, basically. Yeah. But do I need to shame the people who yelled at me for not wearing a mask on a hiking trail, which happened 20 times? 20 times. I hiked a lot during COVID, and I got yelled at 20 times. But should I go do that? Should we force these people to apologize and recant?
No, it's just that we just need to hold politicians accountable for it. I hate to use vote them out as something to say, but it's just culturally we need to say that this was wrong, and we need to keep saying that this was wrong, and that the way that the people who enforce these rules were doing the wrong thing, the people who broke the rules were doing the right thing. And if we don't culturally come to that, which we're starting to come to that, it's starting to become more acceptable to say that, and pretty much nobody wants to feel like the COVID Nazi in the room anymore. So we're getting there. But if we don't establish this, the next time something happens, which could be any day now, there could be a new thing that brings the totalitarians to do some new policy. People might fall in line again,
Right. We need a cultural counter norm.
Yes.
Right. Right. I agree. I'm just too tired of talking about COVID to do that. So
Yeah. No,
that'll
you
be
sound
your
like
project.
personally, everybody who talks like this still after 3 years sounds like a bitter loser and just needs to move on. But you know,
yeah, people who are still, I mean, people on our side who are still talking about COVID every day on Twitter.
Mhm.
I think it's really time to talk about Ukraine instead, and China and Russia, please. Honestly, let's look at the big map now, okay? Not just the map of your local town.
Yeah.
Michael, we have not talked about black people and seasoning chicken. And
Yeah. Did you see the
that's
TikTok in
because
question?
of white supremacy.
Yeah. Did you see the TikTok in question that started all this?
We don't care about black people or their seasonings.
Yeah.
The washing the chicken?
No.
Or the white girl.
White girl, Spice Mommy, as she has been coined.
Watched it. Yes. I didn't quite understand the context. Like, what was she responding to?
So she made a meal on TikTok, just innocent cooking channel, saying, "Oh, I was cooking for my friends and family and used everything in the fridge, and this is the meal I made." And she got a bunch of comments from people who might have been of any race, we don't know, saying, "Oh, you ain't seasoned the chicken. You ain't seasoned it," like telling her she didn't season the chicken correctly. And she's
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's responding to those haters and said,
that's why the right wing loved her. That's why she's the right wing girl of the month. Okay, right. Since the Waffle House woman who threw the chair at the black girl, she was their hero. Now this is their new bae. Because she stood up to black people and told them about making fun of her.
And she never explicitly made it racial. Nobody ever explicitly made it racial. It's just, if you know who's making the comments about certain people don't know how to season their food.
Right.
And then
she went after, she also went after their intelligence with the thing about, see this onion powder? What do you think that is? It's onions. Right.
Yeah.
She had a point.
She does have a point.
Okay. I see. Now that I understand the racial context, it's hilarious.
Yep. And here's the thing, though. She's Mexican, or at least she claims she's Mexican.
I heard that.
Is this still a win for Team White, or do we have to retreat? And,
Team White.
Yeah.
Let's make uniforms.
Yeah.
I want a uniform.
Yeah, I got some bed sheets I can carve up. Yeah.
By the way, it has to be a baseball uniform, of course, right? With the belt and the big socks and everything, the hat. So I think Team White needs uniforms, and I'm going to be the starting pitcher. Anyway. All right, we're going to go.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, and then in order to this did spur a race war on Twitter. And then to respond, some frog Twitter accounts showed black people eating cornstarch, which is apparently a practice in the hood, and washing their chicken. Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love a good race war.
Yeah.
But especially when it's about stupid shit like this. And in fact, I don't even really mind some low-key racialism if it's around issues like this, right? If it's about like making fun of each other about food, fine, But when it comes to things like, violence and crime and who gets what job and all that stuff, don't love it. Anyway, all right, enough racism, Michael. We have to go.
Yeah,
we're gonna have a huh?
Well, no, this is an anti-racist podcast. We destroyed the harmful stereotype that white people don't know how to season their food.
Oh my God. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Like, I mean, have you ever had French cooking, everyone? Like, what do you mean they don't know how to season their food? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Really, the racism is making me uncomfortable. So I'm gonna go to Unregistered Live and hang out with the people right now. After every Unreported, and I'm for the newbies here, this is true. We have a meeting, a Zoom meeting with all of our patrons, our Patreon patrons. And we hang out for a long time after this, and we do not record it, and you do not have to show your face. You can be completely anonymous. You can turn off your video and your audio, whatever, and just watch and listen. There might be some drugs involved. doing of drugs during this. It's a lot of fun. We do it after every Unreported, and it's incredibly cheap. All you have to do is become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/unregistered, and you can join at any level to join Unregistered Live, which starts right now. Michael, this was super fun. Really fun. We didn't watch a single video clip though.
No, we did.
Or no, we did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot. I'm an old man. I forgot. It's actually long COVID is fucking with my memory. But all right. Thank you, Michael. Thanks everyone in the chat. Peace.
Yep. See you on the other side.
See you on the other side.
I'm out.